As the title of the conference suggests, the aim today is to focus on a much neglected part of the climate change debate, and that is the human cost of climate change. Having lived in Africa myself for most of my life, the effects of environmental inequality is not new to me. I've seen firsthand what it means not to have basic rights realised. So today, as we launch the Scottish communiqué on climate change drawn up by the 4 partners, the Scottish Government, SEPA, BTCV, and the Scottish Human Rights Commission, we want you to be part of realising that communiqué, because the agenda is so large that it cannot be achieved by the government alone.
It's an evolving concept and it's used in different ways as yet, but some of us are trying to focus in particular on the injustice of the fact that the greenhouse gas emissions come from the lifestyles which we have chosen in the modern Scotland, the modern Ireland, the United States, Korea, etc., over decades now. And the whole of Africa is responsible for less than 3% of these emissions. And I understand the poorest 50 countries, which are the most affected, but less than 1%. So there's an injustice of causation. The right to development at the moment would be a carbon development. And if everybody of the billions at the bottom of the pyramid exercise that right, we would have no safe world after 2050. It gets very personal for me when I look at my 4 grandchildren who will be in their 40s in 2050. And I ask, will they have a safe world? So I must commend again Scotland for your focus on climate justice. I hope that your voice will be heard loudly in Copenhagen, joining with all the other voices, urging a people-centred, human-centred approach to this incredible challenge to all of our futures.
The right to a healthy and sustainable environment is the precondition for the enjoyment of a whole range of human rights, which are the entitlements of each and every one of us: the right to livelihood, the right to the highest attainable standard of health, the right to adequate standard of housing, and on a global basis, the right to life itself. So as part of this beginning to embrace the concept of climate justice, a change of language is maybe not a bad thing, and to view those communities and individuals not simply as consumers or users of public services, but as rights holders. And it's giving that energizing effect, releasing human energy, that is one of the added values that a human rights approach will bring to the efforts to combat climate change.
This is the Glasgow flood of December 1994. The rainfall around the hills surrounding Glasgow was 250 millimetres in 2 days over that weekend. We thought that was pretty extraordinary. In Cumbria, last weekend, it was 370 millimetres over 2 days. This flood in Glasgow is £100 million worth of damage and 2 people died. Is that due to climate change? Yes. The planet is already almost 1 degree warmer. There is no longer any natural weather. There hasn't been for many years. The weather outside now is man-made, and I don't think we're doing a particularly good job of it. Let's just look at the $100 billion storm, Hurricane Katrina. 55% of the city's housing was flooded by more than 1 metre of water, and of those, 35,000 homes were uninsured. So when the poor get hit, they end up poorer.
The picture on the screen is a gas flare. A gas flare is natural gas associated with crude oil extraction. That gas could be harnessed for industrial domestic use. It could be re-injected into the soil, and it could be just lit and allowed to burn. In Nigeria, oil corporations just light the gas, and it burns, explodes, pollutes the atmosphere, releases greenhouse gases into the atmosphere 24 hours every day continuously. And we have about 120 points where this is taking place. Chemicals coming from the flare is actually very poisonous. So producing food with this kind of source is actually poisoning the people and killing the people. Article 24 of the African Charter for People and Human Rights states that every African shall have the right to a satisfactory environment in which to live and to develop. Now, with the kind of activities going on, that right is abridged from the word go.
My name's Lucy, and I'm from the Isle of Egg. In 1997, Egg was one of the first community buyouts in Scotland, and it is now owned and managed by the Isle of Egg Heritage Trust in association with the Residents and Residents Association. Egg Electric is probably the biggest project since the buyout that we've done. The biggest generator is from hydro, which is 110 kilowatts, and then there's 4 small wind turbines which produce 24 kilowatts, and solar PV cells which produce the smallest amount at 10 kilowatts. We believe that we are a green island, but we believe that any small community can be a green island. Can your office commit to never flying again on office business? Your school, perhaps they can make more of local produce in their school meals. 5-a-side football team, share a car, or perhaps the 5 of you could take part in the 5 kilowatt challenge and see if you could live with under 5 kilowatts and survive.
We relate to the land, or we're trying to re-relate to the land in a number of ways, the first of which is involvement in growing our own food. We've worked closely with BTCV and with a range of community gardeners to offer opportunities to people across North Glasgow and indeed further to take part. So if we're working with groups of young people whose habit is to not be able to get into their home until perhaps 8 or 9 o'clock at night from school and have nowhere to go, when we do cookery classes with them, the first thing is, well, what do you eat? What do you normally eat? And we'll find it's carry-outs, it's frozen pizzas, it's hamburgers from McDonald's, it's KFCs. Our rationale rather is, okay, you like burgers, what we're going to do is we're going to cook burgers today, but we're going to change the ingredients, and then we'll do a taste test and see what you think of it. The model of the initiative is to start from where people are at, so to start from their reality as much as is possible and build on that reality with them in order that the changes that people are making are not being dictated by us as a community project. Not at all. It's being dictated by those who are taking part in the allotment, taking part in the cookery classes, taking part in the fruit and veg stalls.
Bangladesh is a country that's situated in South Asia. It's got 220 rivers flowing through it, so very little land. I think it's about 56,000 square miles, and it's got a population of 150 million people. So if we stand, we would all fall off from one end to the other, and most of us would fall off into the Bay of Bengal. There isn't enough land. On top of that, whatever land we have is being lost due to development, that human interventions. We were already a developing country. More than 40% of the people live below the poverty line. But climate change has added and compounded that problem. Some experts are saying we'll have 90 million climate refugees. 90 million is the population of Germany. Can you imagine if the entire population of Germany were internally displaced, had to move because they didn't have land? That is the magnitude of the problem. And that is just for Bangladesh.
I don't think there could possibly be a more appropriate time to start to have a conference in relation to climate change than to do it on the back of what has been, in terms in this country, a pretty shocking weekend of climate events, particularly for people in Cumbria. If anyone ever needed some persuasion that there are weather incidents that are of a different order happening today than have happened in the last 40, 50, 100 years, then I think the example was marshalled for us over the weekend, which is why we cannot avoid the type of action that the Climate Change Act encompasses. I've been asked to share with you the comments of one of the members of our Children's Parliament to capture, in a sense, our hopes and our aspirations of what happens in Copenhagen.
It's not nice knowing that when you're going to grow up, the world won't be a nice place. So, it's everyone's world, not just yours. Do your bit.